I spoke on Rosh Hashanah about what an incredibly difficult year this has been for all of us in so many ways. As the Jewish people, as a nation, for me personally, what an incredibly difficult year this has been. And it's not the first time that the Jewish people have felt like we are existentially facing what it means to be at the edge, at the verge. Some people feel that way in this country, on both sides. They feel like we are at an existentially challenging moment about what is the future, will we make it through the current times? But this is not the first time the Jewish people have faced that. And of course, the most famous and largest impact on the Jewish people in some ways, that an event of that kind, existentially challenging moment of threat and loss, was the destruction of the temple. With the destruction of the Second Temple and the exile of the Jewish people from Israel, it looked like the project was over. And for all intents and purposes, it should have been over. If you look, where are the Edomites? Where are the Jebusites? Right? Where are the Amalekites? Where are any of those peoples? Once they were conquered and their sacred places, their central places destroyed, and they were dispersed, that's what the Romans did. They dispersed populations so they wouldn't be able to gather together and revolt. All of those peoples disappeared that happened to, except one. A tiny little remnant called the Jewish people. And that is because our sages refused to let the project end because it was going to look radically different. But it took a while for it to be evident that we weren't going to necessarily disappear. That took a long time. And the remembrance of the destruction of the temple was so painful for the Jewish people because they really thought, this is it. When we're gone, it's all over. Imagine what it's like living in a time like that where your civilization, your entire tradition, your way of being in the world, your language, everything will be obliterated and gone. The pain of that is resonant through the Mishnah and the Talmud, through Midrash and all kinds of rabbinic, beautiful writings. One of those is a commentary in the Talmud on a verse from Hosea, from the prophet Hosea, where Hosea puts in the words of God. That's the prophet's job, right? To speak the words of God. Puts in the words of God that God says to God's self, Elech va'ashuva el mikomi. I will go, I will return to my place. And that is read in the Talmud as, of course, talking about God leaving the temple, the divine presence leaving the temple, the Shekhinah, as they call the divine presence, and it's feminine, the way they talk about God's essence, God's presence. The rabbis talk about this as Shekhinah, the mother of Israel. And the Babylonian Talmud in the Masachet Rosh Hashanah says the Shekhinah traveled 10 journeys, meaning 10 stages. The Shekhinah went from the ark, from the holy ark where God's presence was said to be most concentrated in the Mishkan, and then in the temple, in the tabernacle, and then in the temple, from ark to the Kruvim above the ark, the cherubs, from Keruv to Keruv, from one cherub to another, from the Kruvim to the threshold of the Holy of Holies, from the threshold to the courtyard, from the courtyard to the altar, from the altar to the roof, from the roof to the wall, meaning the wall of the city, from the wall to the city, from the city to the mountain, and from mountain to wilderness. And from wilderness she ascended and rested in her place, as it is stated, I will go, return to my place. The incredibly painful experience of the Jewish people of feeling like God had left them. And when they write this about 10 stages, it's not boom, God was gone. It's agony, that the Shekhinah is in agony to be leaving. It's a tragedy for Shekhinah too, who weeps at the border, weeping for the people going into exile, her children leaving in exile. This incredibly painful, beautiful set of images from our sages. The Mishkan's role, that's why they talk about the Aron, that's why they talk about the ark. The Mishkan's role was to remind them always, the tabernacle and then the temple, that they were a people united in the way that they understood our relationship to each other and the world as being a relationship to the ultimate, a relationship to source, a relationship that's not volunteer. It is obligatory that we treat each other with justice. We can argue about what that looks like. But from our earliest days, the ark in the tabernacle and in the temple itself was a focal point for us as a people, reminding us with all of our differences and as far away as the divine might feel. And for many of us, just look at the poetry coming out of Israel right now and here in response to October 7th. It can feel like, where were you that God is gone? So we sit in a very similar place in some ways to the rabbis at Halavai. It shouldn't be. It should never be for us that we're living their reality of an actual destruction and exile. God forbid 1,000,000 times. And we have to do everything we can to prevent that. But that feeling that they had, that it just was coming apart somehow and it might not last. It might not make it. Also because there was a lot of discrepancies between the people, a lot of difference in wealth. And the prophets are yelling and screaming about this discrepancy in wealth and that people are going hungry in Israel. Other Israelites are allowing Israelites to go hungry, orphans to not be taken care of. Eventually, that is what helps bring down Jerusalem. What makes it weak enough to be conquered is the division among the Jewish people. There's much scholarship about that. So again, let us remember the lessons of our history, that we cannot let us become so polarized and so separate from one another that we don't see it as a communal project anymore. We can argue, we're supposed to. Jews are experts at debate and arguing. That's what the Talmud is. It's a huge collection of rabbinic arguing. Because that is supposed to bring about the best result, the best answer. But we also need things that will help remind us that in the wake of all of that, we are one country. We are one people. That has always been for us the ark at the center of the Mishkan, at the center of the temple. And now, of course, we have Jewish communities in so many places. Thank God. It's amazing how many places we have synagogues and communities like ours. And at the center of every sanctuary is the ark. And our ark was crafted so beautifully, so incredibly beautifully, and it has served us so well. And it is now as fragile and broken as we are. During one bar mitzvah, we had guests, little guests, come up, and we could give them an easy honor like opening the doors of the ark because they're very scared and they're in front of a lot of people. So that's the honor they were given, just to open the doors of the ark. And it's a big bar mitzvah and everyone's having a great time. And the little ones come up to open the door and the front of the ark goes The kids were like this. The congregation went It is now so long past glue holding anymore, it is Velcroed on to the front of the ark. It's not that it would be nice to have a new ark. We need a new ark. It is falling apart. It's embarrassing. And that shouldn't be in a congregation that has so much to be proud of. It shouldn't be. The ark has always held our sacred teachings. In the ancient Near East, this was a radical departure, as was what we read, Nitzavim. All y'all stand here today before me, making a covenant. All y'all. That didn't happen in the ancient Near East. Only the priests, or the king, who was often the priest, got to be part of this deal with the divinities, their gods, and what the gods wanted, and they were in control of that information, and that's what gave them a lot of power in their society, not the Jews. Atem netzavim kulchem hayom. All y'all, and it's not redundant in the Hebrew. Itai will tell you. There's y'all and there's all y'all. Usually all y'all means the women too, but whatever. So all of you are part of this commitment, all of you. And that's why all Israelites were part of the Mishkan, were part of building the tabernacle, part of building what would give the scared people who had just come out of slavery and didn't know what they were doing and didn't know where they were going and couldn't barely believe the project would be successful. The Mishkan was supposed to inspire them that we can do this, and with dignity and beauty. That's what we deserve to at KI. And so we are going to build a beautiful new ark. You saw a rendering outside. And our esteemed president said, it's a shame we didn't include any description of why it looks like that and what exactly is going on. I said, had you done that, you would have taken my Yom Kippur sermon. So thankfully, that did not happen. So on the ark, you will see that our ark is based on the Mishkan. Our ark is based on the idea of a portable ark that was carried with the tabernacle whenever the Israelites broke camp and built camp again. For us, let that be a reminder. It was fragile at the beginning. We think it's fragile now. Yes, we're a remnant people. Yes, it's scary. Yes, and Israel's tiny in the region. Yes, and it's a bad neighborhood. Yes, and it was always fragile. Do we feel divided as an American people? Yes. Are we at each other's throats? Yes. Are we all consuming disinformation and misinformation? You see, I do listen when I have coffee with you and you tell me that we're all being fed disinformation. I do listen. Mark Schinderman. So we're all feeling like the other side is crazy and how could anyone think that way and what does that mean for our country and it's all going to be over. Guess what? It was always fragile. The start of this country was always fragile. The Civil War could have ended the whole thing because it was so fragile. We were never really united. Neither were the Israelites, by the way. Never united. North and South were always... The ark that was carried is to remind us, the one we're going to have that looks like that is going to remind us it's always been on a wish and a prayer and a lot of hard work that we are still here. That's why it looks like it does. If you have been on the design committee, would you please stand up? I see you. Do you think I don't see you? These people have given countless hours to thinking about not just what would be beautiful, but what would be meaningful. What will help us walk into our sanctuary and feel the pride that we should feel in a tradition that has been so nourishing and so wise and so flexible and open that it continues to evolve. We should walk in there and feel that sense of kavod, of glory, of respect. So this new sanctuary will not change what we love. It will not change the feel at all of what we love, that it's in the round, that it's bright, that it's open. All of that will continue. But we are going to have a gorgeous portal. We're going to have beautiful doors, ones that don't look like a cafeteria at a high school. This is no insult to the people who designed the original building. It has lasted beautifully. It is so far ahead of its time. Other synagogues that have had to do this have had to take it down to the studs. We are not having to do that because our people had such forethought. So I'm not insulting anything about the design, but it's tired. It's time for that entryway to the sanctuary to feel like mamash, a gesunta change from whatever we've been about to what's about to happen, to what happens next. So you will come in through a brand new set of doors. On them will be a rendering of the letter Shin, as we have on a mezuzah when you enter your home. The back of a mezuzah is open and you see the letter Shin on the cloth, on the piece of paper that's inside. So the Shins will be there representative of a huge mezuzah. As you walk in, you will then turn left and go up the stairs. so that when you turn around, you are gazing at this incredibly beautiful ark. On the front of the ark, if you've looked at the renderings, you're like, oh, what is that? Right? It looks like it's written in an Oriental language that you read this way. It's incredibly beautiful, a very clever design. Those are the letters Lamed and Bet on the front of the ark coming down the insides of the doors. Why the letters Bet and Lamed? Bet is the first letter of Torah. Lamed is the last letter of Torah. So on the ark, in different shapes and in different configurations and iterations, are the letters Lamed and Bet to remind us we take this thing in its entirety, from Bet to Lamed. We can argue with parts of it. We can say, I'm not about that, and that needs to change. That's fine. But we engage with this thing from Bet to Lamed. But if you're reading Torah all the time, remember we never take a break between reading books of Torah? You remember that? As soon as we end a book, we start the next book right then. We do the first few sentences of the next book. We're never supposed to be in between books of Torah. So if that's true, then Torah is always being read in a circle. So as the minute you finish it, you're starting it again. So the minute you finish with that Lamed, what are you going to start with? Bet. What is Lamed Bet? Heart. Lev. Torah. Teachings about how to live together in peace and equality, compassion, forgiveness, struggle, debate, caring for those who don't have as much. That's what Torah is for us. Instruction about how to build a society that is holy, that cares about holiness and a relationship to what we believe are our fundamental values. That's Torah. That's the heart of the Jewish people. Lev will be on our ark to remind us. These teachings should be at the heart of this congregation and at the heart of this people, at the heart of all of our conversations about what we feel should happen in our country and in the world, should be these guiding teachings. So we have the ark, of course. Many of you, if you know, you look up at KI, and as you see through the windows on the top, you see that silver dome, right? If you look, now you're going to look next time you go. You look up, and outside the building, you see like a silver dome. It is supposed to be reminiscent of the moon, because we follow a lunar cycle. We are a people who can look up at the sky and know where we are in a Jewish month. You can't do that with a solar calendar, can you? Oh, there's the sun. I wonder what month it is, what day of the month it is. You can know where you are in the day, but not in the year. It's a beautiful thing about our calendar that we follow the moon. And so when you open the ark and we separate the parochet, there will be the same silver leaf that is on that dome in the ark. So this Sifrei Torah will be up against this gorgeous silver leaf on the inside. All around the ark will be onyx, one of the stones that was on the breastplate of the high priest, and it will be warmly lit from the back, so that we have that remnant of the priesthood, of the Mishkan, to charge us to be a nation of priests and priestesses. We are to be an Am Kadosh, a holy people. That means in relationship, fundamental relationship to goodness, righteousness, generosity, kindness. On the parochet that has the colors of a California beach sunset, beautifully rendered, though that on it will be written the words of the priestly benediction that we recite when we name babies, when we celebrate B'nai Mitzvah, when we celebrate conversions, when we celebrate weddings, when we want to mark a life moment for people. This is the bracha that we give in front of the open ark, and that will be on the parochet. As soon as you open the ark doors, that's what you see, the priestly benediction. So that's our aron, that's our ark, and we will have, instead of what we have lovingly on the design team have started to call Sputnik, the thing that comes down from the ceiling to hold all the lights and speakers and stuff, you don't notice it so much until you start noticing it. So once you start taking pictures from all sides of the room, and it's all you see is Sputnik there in the middle of the room. And so that will go away. And instead, the design, look at it when you go out there now, you'll see the design will look like a talit. It will look like a chuppah. And so the idea is, well, for me, I don't want to say what's in the design team's head, but for me, what's so beautiful about that is that means every time we're in our sanctuary, we are under the chuppah with Shekhinah. With Shekhinah. We are under the chuppah with the Kadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be God. We are under the chuppah as a congregation. We are under the chuppah together. We are committing. Every time we sit under the chuppah in KI, we are committing to each other again. I don't have to agree with you to stay in relationship to you. I don't have to agree with you. I don't even have to like you to be committed to being in relationship with you. That will be at the center of our new space. We are Reconstructionists. What does that mean? Midrash Tanchuma reconstructs the Talmudic interpretation of that verse I told you about. They were Reconstructionists too. They said, well, that is true. The Shekhinah, and it's so sad, and the Shekhinah departs. And what if you read that verse a little differently? What if you read, Elech ashuva el komi, I will go, I will return to my place. What if you read that as I will go, comma, I will return to my place? Meaning, I gotta go, I understand that. Things have happened, and I can't be there right now. I get that. I can't change that. I'm not a God who changes that. I will return to my place. And my place is in every Jewish community. My place is with the Jewish people. I will return. So as modern Reconstructionists, we do, as people who are not literalists or fundamentalists, we know we're not going to pray for Shekhinah to come back. We don't believe that's a decision outside of us. We know it's our job to bring the divine presence back to our space in a different way. That's our avodah. That's our service. That's our holy work. And we are so proud of how much work has gone into this and how generous you all have been already, how incredibly generous you've been. Moshe had to tell the people to stop bringing gifts. There was too much when they were building the Mishkan. We won't tell you that. That won't happen. But thank you so much from all of us who care about this so much, and so do you, obviously, for your generosity. And this is, as we said last night, this is zicharon. This is remembering all those who have come before us, not simply by bringing them to mind and heart, but by building something that reminds us of the importance of what their lives and their traditions and what they had to teach were about. May we be worthy of those teachings, and may we continue them forward that others may inherit them from us. Shana Tova.